Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today I'm going to show you how to perfectly fertilize your seed starts. We're going to talk about the manufactured chemical types on the left in blue or using the organic fish emulsion on the right. You can use either one. They're not going to harm your plant. Whatever one you choose is perfectly fine. The problem is that these plants are only growing in a little bit of starting mix. And what happens is people tend to treat these as though they're outdoor plants growing in the ground or containers. Feed them like they're outdoors. It over-concentrates the fertilizers, causes a problem. It harms the plants. Sometimes when a plant has too much fertilizer, it yellows, or it looks like it needs more, or it turns purple. Then we respond by giving it more fertilizer, and we kill off the transplants. The whole key to your seed starts and fertilizing indoors is very low, minimal N, P, and K, very low fertilizer. So I'll talk about how we set those up. You can use either one. But first, the question I always get is, when do I feed my tomato plants, or when do I feed my seed starts? And this is generally speaking how I feed my tomatoes and peppers, but it also holds true for other seed starts. So today is December 15th. These tomatoes were planted, or the seeds are dropped on November 24th. They germinated, broke the surface in about 7 days. So these have been growing about 2 weeks. There is no fertilizer in the soil. There is no soil life there. I sterilize my seed start mix with boiling water so I don't get fungus gnats. I will link the video to show you how to do that. It's just plain old starting mix, which is basically peat moss and vermiculite. They've grown this well under grow lights with no nutrition, just water and just the grow lights. Now, a healthy tomato plant's going to be green on top. It's going to look like it has some purpling on the underside. That's perfectly normal. The stems may be a little bit purple. That's perfectly normal. These are healthy plants. So to fertilize them, after they germinate, 14 days, 10, 14 days is the first time you're going to feed them. And you're just going to replace the watering. Instead of just putting water in here, I'll have a video to show you how to do that, so I will link that too. You're just going to put in your chemical type fertilizers into a gallon of water, or your organic fertilizers into a gallon of water. So let's start with the manufactured type. They are, and here's the example, I think this is just called Plant Food by Stay Green. It's a 24-8-16 fertilizer, which means it's 24% nitrogen, 8% phosphorus, and 16% potassium, N, P, and K. Forgot for a second. You don't want to use it at that full strength. You want to really dilute it down. So typically it's 1 tablespoon per gallon. You just want to put 1 teaspoon per gallon into there, and you're cutting these numbers down by 2/3. If you're on metric, which most of the world is, it's 5 milliliters to 4 liters of water. That is a nice low dose. We would just pour it in here. Usually my flat is full. Fill it up about quarter away. Let the water seep up from the bottom. Let the fertilizer seep up from the bottom. Whatever's not absorbed in 30 minutes, you dump out. Your plants are fertilized. Same thing with the fish emulsion. Now, fish emulsion is naturally a lower N, P, and K, but you just need really numbers, 2 or under. You don't need a lot. So instead of using a full tablespoon in a gallon, I recommend 2 teaspoons per gallon. That's 10 milliliters per 4 liters. And you're bringing your N, P, and K down by about 1/3 there. So, it's like a 3.3. The point is, and it's really worth stressing, is you don't want full concentration fertilizers put on here. You can just use really trace amounts of N, P, and K, and your plants will be okay. Now, why will they be okay? So we're going to fill these up with one of these products. And if your plants begin to look a little bit yellow, or they don't look like they're doing well, you know that you're not over fertilizing. So you could supplement into feeding maybe, a week later. Watch the plants the plants seem to do well, you're good to go. You can always add in more feedings. It's really hard to remove over fertilizing. I hope that makes sense. So let's just go over real quick. So your tomato plants come up in about 7 days. They grow about 2 weeks. That's when you're going to give them your first feeding. So again, it doesn't matter which product you use, and I'm going to actually just use both. Set it up. I recommend getting, milk containers or containers, mixing it that way. So we're putting in half of the chemical types, half of the fish emulsion. It's really up to you. The plants can't tell the difference. And let's give them a little more. And that's my first feeding after 14 days of growth. You're going to do this again every 7 to 14 days, depending on how big your plants are and what you're growing. And you just kind of keep it slow and steady. That will be plenty of nutrition, N, P, and K, other fertilizers. I like mixing them because the chemical types have NPK. They also have the second tier macronutrients, magnesium, sulfur, calcium, and other micronutrients. I like using the fish emulsion because it starts introducing some biology back into the seed starting mix. When I transplant these up, I add more into the starting mix. I start putting in more soil life. I wanted to just show you real quick. I use Vermistera product right there. That's a worm casting tea. I use 1 ounce per gallon. You don't have to do that, but it does add in all the great things that are found in worm casting. Growth hormones, microbes, all kinds of stuff. If you want to purchase that, you can use the link or use the code in my video description. I wanted to separate it because it's not necessary. You can get by without it if you're on a budget and you don't want to spend the money. But that's predominantly how I add in the microbiology back into my seed starting mix. I'll also use the worm castings, but that'll be a future video. But the whole key, just a quick refresh, is whatever fertilizer you decide to use, reduce the amount of it. Keep an eye on your plants. If they look like they're struggling, give them a little bit more, but just don't overfeed them. Hope that gives you some confidence to use the chemical type fertilizers or the organic type fertilizers on your seed starts. Thanks so much for watching, and please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.